Michele, thanks a lot for coming on the internet. Seriously, great to see you. I was just trying to think how long we've known each other. Probably about 20 years, maybe a bit longer. I don't know.
Everybody assumes they've known me for donkey's years when they probably haven't.
They probably haven't. It just feels like donkey's years, I guess.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. But
every minute you spend with me feels like 10. I mean, that's
it's like what they
positive.
say about, when you give up drinking, you don't necessarily live longer, it just feels longer. Maybe it's like...
say that.
Yeah.
It's like that meme about, how you can replace coffee with green tea and remove 85% of the pleasure of life.
So, Michele, tell us a bit more about Blacknight. You set it up... You started working on it when you were a student. You were doing languages, weren't you? In Limerick.
I was doing European studies with 2 languages in Limerick, at the University of Limerick, which is on the towards the west coast of Ireland. And at the time, I suppose the internet was kind of in its infancy. I mean, when I started college in '95, most people wouldn't have had an email address or anything like that. By the time I finished a couple of years later, it obviously was evolving, but there was still a lot of people who just didn't really understand it and weren't comfortable with it. So I started building websites for various academics within the university, and then from out of that kind of morphed into providing a bit of website hosting for various organizations and businesses, and then realized that, well, first off, I can't design to save my life. And that doing the hosting was probably a better idea. And I kept working in the languages space for a few more years, and then in 2003 decided to give this a go full time. I'd already picked up a business partner by then, and we've been at it now for 21 years or so.
Just Michele, on that point about, I know exactly why you went into tech. I did it myself 25 years ago. But what was it about languages? Why did you pick that in the first place?
Which the languages or the tech?
Yeah, the languages.
And then the languages to tech is an interesting journey too, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I'd started going to France when I was a teen, because I've got relatives who've been living over there for donkey's years, and I kind of had a bit of an affinity towards languages, and ended up working in France, and then it was like, okay, been doing that for a couple of years, I wouldn't mind going to college, and what are my options? So the University of Limerick had this course which was European Studies, and with various different paths you could take, and one of them was with 2 languages, so that's the one I chose. Kind of because it kind of, I don't know, attracted me at some level. I was kind of curious about other parts of it. Because it was one of those things, you had history, you had sociology, you had culture, you had language, you had all these different things together. And I suppose the combination was interesting. Because originally, I shouldn't be here. I mean, I should be, stuck in academia somewhere. I mean, I started doing a PhD in translation and got sidetracked and ended up in this space.
But however, I still think that tech is a number of languages, so I still think there is some translation there. Obviously, you don't speak to each other in HTML and CSS.
Yeah, but I don't code. I mean, I don't code, so it doesn't that doesn't mean anything to me.
But normally linguists are really analog people, aren't they? And also with that background in culture and literature and all the things that really getting deeply into a language brings you. How did you make that leap into technology? Was it that you just saw that it was something that was happening? And
no. I mean, people keep assuming that I've had some brilliant foresight, or that
or a plan. Did you have a plan?
No. Okay. First off, there's no plan.
I think that's something that everyone in tech has in common. Actually, a lot of the people who came in to technology at the same age or stage that we all did tend to have that in common.
Would you agree that, Kieran, did you end up in tech?
Well, you actually are an engineer. You're an engineer too.
No, I'm an engineer. I got excited, but I actually started building websites because I thought it was really interesting in the early days of the internet.
Yeah.
So I just did it for fun, and then you would put it, and then this thing
thought
would
it was
appear.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
you had this
it would
thing,
scale
and
in
it
detail.
then it became a very exciting kind of world. There was a lot of movement going on.
And were you, and Michele, in your early days, were you doing very much the server under the desk type of business model?
No, in my case, it was the server in Canada.
Oh.
I was buying web space from a company in Canada who's since gone bust. And at the time, in the Irish market, to buy any kind of hosting was crazy expensive. And the amount of resources they gave you, both disk space, bandwidth, all that was just pathetic. So this company in Canada were offering what was, at the time, super generous, like a whole 100 megabytes of disk space for like $99 a year, which was significantly cheaper than anything you get here. So I started getting stuff from them and putting these clients that I had on their services, and then I putting a few of my own bits and pieces on there. And then their service went kind of downhill, and I was living in Milan at the time teaching English, and I had a choice. I was like, okay, this could go bang wallop, or maybe I do something to kind of keep it running. So I got a server from a company in Dublin. And yeah, 20 odd years later, that's what I do.
Now you have a big data center. You must be the biggest hosting provider in Ireland now, are you right? The biggest
So we would be the largest independent
Yeah.
hosting provider and registrar in the Irish market.
Wow.
There's, obviously Amazon has AWS and Microsoft has Azure, and they have like massive data centers in Dublin. But we have our own small data center here in Carlow, and we take space from a couple of data centers in Dublin as well. So, we're the largest independent, I suppose. And there's a couple of other companies that are, parts of larger groups, but we're still independent for now.
Fantastic.
Do you ever hang out in your data center? Do you say, "Hey, come round, let's go to the data center"?
Kieran, we need to have a serious chat.
There must be benefits to having your own data center.
Screaming
The
loud.
screaming.
Go in
Do you
there.
have
They're
to-
really, like if you, okay, so like the data center we have in this building, it's not particularly big, but it is a small version of what we have at a much larger scale elsewhere. It is loud.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you go in there if you don't have ear covering, ear protection type stuff, you go in there and after about 2 or 3 minutes, you're like, okay, I need to get out of here. This is just not fun. This is not comfortable. This is just between the noise of the fans from the various servers and switches and routers and various other things in there, plus depending on the time of year and the temperature outside, the other equipment. I mean, the noise level in there it's not great. It's also kind of a weird kind of noise. It's kind of like, it's not like music or people talking or traffic. It's a really irritating noise that kind of gets in underneath you. I don't know. It's just, as soon as you close the door, you can't hear it.
Yeah.
We used to have metal box servers, and in Oxford you can't get them unless you're associated with the university, which have exclusive access to what they call the backbone in the UK. So the nearest we can get to the backbone is down on the M4, which is about a half an hour drive.
Right.
And we'd have to go down at the middle of the night and get access, 24-hour access it was. And at one point, the time when we finally gave up because we didn't have our own, so it wasn't under our own management, was when the air conditioning system packed up and the guy running the server farm was running around local B&Qs trying to buy temporary air conditioning systems and shoving them into this place to try and cool everything down because they were auto-shutting down when they got to a certain temperature. So
What
it was
a
just
nightmare.
endless rebooting, absolute nightmare for us. And I think if I got back into that game again, you'd have to have some control. It would have to be nearby. But I totally get you about that screaming volume.